So it's July 29th, 2025. Let's start this video by asking a question. What should I talk about? And let me verbalize my answer to that question. There's a lot of things I could talk about, but I want to talk about the truth. Truth has a definition, in my opinion. It's my definition of truth. And it's something like this. Truth has to be something that is logically valid. I'm not allowed to say 2 + 2 = 5. I have to say 2 + 2 = 4 because that's logically valid. I also have to talk about something that's relevant. Relevance is hard. I mean, is it relevant to point out my personal issues, like that I need to, go to the pharmacy to get medicine, or that I haven't thought about what I'm having for dinner yet? I mean, these things are definitely relevant and things I need to think about, but it's not, relevant to, talk about that on this particular YouTube video. So relevance is hard. And so we run our minds through lots of things. So I could tell personal stories because they could help any viewer of these videos now or in the future to understand me as a person better. I mean, that has a certain level of relevance to it. And so long as I accurately, and I've been known to tell tall tales, or to not tall tales so much as to talk about something, but hide some element of it, or to overemphasize something that's funny about the story, and that part doesn't need to be emphasized. Anyway, so there's always like personal stories from my past that I could tell. I could talk about current events, of course. I mean, it's like the possibility of nuclear war, Ukraine, and Putin, and Trump, and other things, the Epstein files, all this stuff that's raging in the media right now. Those things are certainly very relevant to talk about. One thing that's difficult about those things is that I'm just one person. I don't have a team of researchers behind me. There's nobody behind me. I'm on my own here. And I'm looking at the world trying to decide what to pay attention to. And it's very, very hard to figure that out. And relevance is, part connected to what to pay attention to. So there's other things, like what ethical systems should all humanity embrace? That's a motif and a common theme of mine. I mean, surely it's not particularly relevant for me to try to discuss how to speak some foreign language I've never even tried to study. There's other people who would be better suited than that. It's not correct for me. It wouldn't be truthful for me to talk about trying to learn, any Hindi or any, foreign language that I don't know. I only know English. I guess I'm pretty conversant in mathematics, if you consider mathematics a language. So there's a lot of, I don't know anything about human anatomy, honestly. Very, very basic stuff. Never really was into biology and medicine. But I am very interested in the question that, that I see on YouTube videos about what the definition of biology is. When does chemistry become biology? And understanding what we are in the context of this universe, in understanding what we are in the context of this universe, requires a lot of active imagination. There's so many things to pay attention to. I mean, I don't even know the names of these leaves over here, what kind of tree that is. This is the Darby Creek. I don't even know what kind of fish is in this creek. I don't know the average size of the fish. There's so many things I could pay attention to. And all, I suppose, have a certain level of relevance. So again, get back to the basics. What should I be talking about? Right now, I'm honestly trying to figure that out. I was talking to myself on this walk, trying to figure out what I'm thinking about and what's of the highest importance. And I remember what triggered me to start the video was this idea about tolerance. I remember there was a time when we used to say tolerance is a very good virtue. We need to tolerate others, people of other cultures or other ethnic backgrounds or etc. And I remember that the idea of tolerance would disappear And I thought one of the reasons why it disappeared was because of the inevitable self-paradox of how do you tolerate somebody who's being intolerable? Somebody who will not tolerate, are you supposed to tolerate them? And it's like, well, because of that self-paradox, I think is one of the reasons why the virtue of tolerance disappeared from, discourse in American. And that triggered something in me, and I started this video. I guess if I could prioritize all of the things in my mind and try to figure out the number one thing I would want to talk about, I guess it would probably be immigration. And I had a crazy argument I want to run by you about immigration, and let's try to figure out how true this is. There has never been a problem with the immigration system in America, ever. There's never been a problem with the immigration system in America. I mean, Kamala Harris, when she was being interviewed by the Fox News guy, said we've had a broken immigration system for a long time. She said something exactly like that. Yes, Donald Trump, we have a broken immigration system. Of course, he'll say a bunch of things that are, he'll say 20 things in a row, and you wait a minute. Each one of those things is something that we could confirm is true or not, and what's going on here. I got two numbers that I found interesting. From one YouTube video, somebody downloaded a bunch of spreadsheets from a government website, said that 83% of people in ICE custody right now, and I don't even know what that number is, how many people are in ICE custody right now, because that matters to me, because people in ICE custody are people in prison, and people in prison are people who are supposed to have violated laws and committed crimes, and it just doesn't seem right to me that desperate people landing on a boat or jumping a border or not having sufficient resources to go back to where they came from when their visa expires, to put them in jail just seems, heavy-handed and wrong and stupid and just, why are we doing that, And I got two numbers. One was 83% of everyone in ICE custody has no criminal record beyond the possibility of jumping the border. And then the other number was 70. Another source was like, I think it was ABC News, that said it was 70%. So 70% of the people in ICE custody never committed a crime. And then I watched ABC News, If You're Listening. I like that guy because, he's got a team of researchers behind him. I'm sure he does. He says things I really like that guy. You should check out his videos. ABC News, If You're Listening. And he talked about this case up in Massachusetts about an 18-year-old honor roll student in high school that ICE took and put in prison, handcuffed for a whole week because they were looking for somebody else and they stumbled across this kid that was illegal. So they grabbed him and put him in jail. And the whole community rose up and protested ICE. And it's so interesting when you watch If You're Listening, they'll even let you see the ICE spokesperson talk about it. And she seems like, she has decided to go in the direction of being compliant with the policy making of the president. You know what I mean? And so unfortunately, he was illegal, so we had to lock him up. But it just didn't seem like her heart was into it. Like she knew she was a shithead for advocating having this kid locked up. Well, sure enough, in a week they let the guy out. And this is I broke friendships over the Garcia kid, because when they snatched him off the streets and sent him down to that El Salvadorian prison without due process. There was this Italian woman I was talking to, and she thunderously said, he's a member of MS-13, and we don't want any parts of him. And you know what MS-13 does to people that cross them, and they torture them, and all this stuff? And I was looking at her thinking, did you ever hear of the Italian mafia? What kind of stuff do you think they used to do? And when an Italian mobster rolls up on a fellow Italian and asks them to do something, they kind of say, sure. They're like, because you're scared. That's how that works. Some kid's from El Salvador, and he just, because of the street he's born on, he tends to be more of an MS-13 member than the other Tren Agua or whatever they were called. You know what I mean? He tends to be more aligned with this one group. You want to survive in this world. And then you come up to America, you're a hardworking kid, Home Depot parking lots, and getting the sheet metal workers union. It's like, that's got to be a great thing to have a solid union job like that. And suddenly MS-13 rolls up on you and says, hey man, we need you to do something for us. You're like, yes, sir. Because it's, what are you going to do? It's MS-13. They'll torture you, right? So it's like, that's how you respond to gangsters. I'll tell you what. Gangsters roll up to me and ask me to do something. Since I'm a full-blown American citizen, I'm going to be more, I might act like I'm agreeing to everything in the moment because of the immediate need for safety. But FBI, Pennsylvania State Police, right as soon as I could get my hands on a phone, But if you're here illegally, you don't have that kind of, it's hard. You don't even understand how the system works. You might even understand. You think a Pennsylvania State Police officer is just as connected and just as powerful as an FBI officer, is just as powerful as a city Philadelphia police officer. When they're not. They have different jurisdictions and different powers. So it's like, but I understand that deeply. I'm an American citizen, born and raised. Had trouble with the law and understand how the system works very well. So, other people are not as fortunate as me. So here, why am I bringing this up? It's because I'm trying to identify what I should be talking about. And I'm trying to identify what the truth is. And truth requires you to be logically accurate. It also requires you to, focus on what is relevant. And I've come to realize that saying this statement out loud has a resonance inside of me that's extremely powerful. There's never been anything wrong with our immigration system. And it's like, well, people will just laugh at me when I say it, but wait a minute. I want you to work it out in your mind. I remember in 1992, Nannygate. Bill Clinton nominated his first Attorney General. I think the one immediately before Janet Reno. She never got confirmed. You can look her up. Just type Nannygate. I'm positive it comes right up on Wikipedia. And what happened in Nannygate is that this American attorney was not allowed to become Attorney General because she used an illegal nanny to help take care of her children. And I remember thinking about that and wondering, understanding why, hey, she broke the law. She shouldn't be allowed to be an Attorney General. But on the other hand, when you're in the moment with another actual human being right there in front of you, a human being who needs food, needs money, has a certain level of desperation, has a story. Some of it might be bullshit, but you don't know. You can't tell. And they're like, I'm here. I'm America. I'm not able to go to the doctor. I don't have a bank card. I don't have my, I really don't want to go back to Guatemala, or I really don't want to go back to Brazil or wherever they're from. And I just, I'm just looking for some way to get by. And you're turning your back on them. I'm like, sorry, man, you're illegal. Tough shit. Is that what I'm supposed to do? Or you cave and you're like, okay, well, I do have some projects around the house I need help with. You could fix this stuff for me, or you could do this. And I know that you're not paying into Social Security and this isn't going to your future. So instead of just giving you $20 an hour, so I won't feel like I'm exploiting you, I'll give you $40 an hour. I mean, that's what most of us would do. Almost all of us. And understand, you see, right therein lies the obvious punishment that comes, the necessary punishment that comes if you're in the country illegally. If you're here because you overstayed that visa, because you jumped the border or whatever, you're at the mercy of people who have legal status. You become a second-class citizen, a slave, something like that. It sucks, but sometimes certain kinds of slavery are better than, other kinds of death, right? I'm just talking to you. And it's like, you got to make the best decisions you can in the actual concrete world that you live in. So here comes this fucking monster, Donald Trump. And he's like, and we're going to build a big wall, and Mexico's going to pay for them, and all 11 million illegals are going to be rounded up in an instant. The number used to be 11 million. He's graduated to 25 million. And in order to cement why it's such a bad thing, that we have all these illegals in the country. It's a replacement theory. They're bringing new Democrats in so that we'll never have our country back. And they give you conspiracy theory upon conspiracy theory. Now, I had a conversation with a really old friend of mine, really smart guy, not long ago. And he said to me something that I think we've been saying to each other because we've been very political for a long time. 54 years old. I've been political since I was 16, 17 years old. I started reading the National Review and John Birch Society newsletters. I loved William F. Buckley Jr. I was as right-wing as it got. But I would convert. I would convert to being a left-winger pacifist, and then I come back around all over the place. And what I eventually would realize about myself is that I was swimming through so many different axioms and way of looking at life until I landed on the ones that I have now, which I think are far better, which all my videos are about, essentially, and some of the writings I've done. But anyway, I was talking to this old friend of mine, and he said they don't want us to fix the immigration system. Keep the immigration system broken. Keep it broken. And that way, there's always this pool of slave laborers were around us, and then we always, poor citizens, always can look it over them. Obama talked about this. The sharecroppers, the white sharecroppers that weren't doing much better than the black guys, but at least they weren't the black sharecroppers, Obama talked, that's it. Obama said that was a story as old as America itself. And I think he's right. Obama's right about that. It is a story as old as America. So, we're sitting here looking at those illegals over there, and we're like, at least we're doing better than them, while we're wallowing in our credit card debt and, trying to think, how the hell are we going to send our kids to college? Thinking about a friend of mine who has 4 kids, and just how difficult it was to send his eldest, to college. And he's got 3 more to go. Jesus, what is he going to do? So, there it is. The reality is we've never had a broken immigration system. It's just propaganda. It's just bullshit. And the propaganda is so powerful and so deep that even someone like Kamala Harris can buy into it. I mean, the solutions to our immigration problems are already right there in front of you. Just implement the policies that we already have. Somebody claims asylum, give them a hearing. Let them, you can tell them when they come back for the hearing. If hearing dates take too long, just get some more immigration judges. Pay for more of them. You make people that are filing for, naturalization and stuff, make their filing fees, pay for those salaries, and so that it doesn't come from taxpayers. This is stuff that we're already doing, right? It's obvious that we're doing that. If there's, a construction firm over here that's using a bunch of illegal labor and a whole bunch of illegal labor, and there's, nobody wants those construction jobs, then just let them be. Let them, that's what they're doing. Let them go. At some point, wouldn't it be nice if they had done it right, which would have been, advertising the community for these construction jobs. Nobody takes the construction jobs. Then they can bring up a bunch of guys from Mexico or somewhere else who can then legally do the work, and they got work permits and everything's legit and legal. That's the real way to do it. But that construction firm might have taken shortcuts. They were struggling to get started in the first place, and they grabbed the 5 guys that were at the Home Depot parking lot, and they became a crew, and they just kept working, And so a bad initial seed that came from financial poverty is what started that whole system in the first place. And then, and people want simple cures to this problem. There isn't simple cures to these problems. That's why our system was never broken. When you are a nation as large as ours, with 330 million people, in a world that has 8 billion people, and we are as prosperous as we are, you are going to have a lot of people in this country who are illegal. But they are automatically being punished for that illegality by the very nature of the system. But it's easy to make you think otherwise. We have a broken system, and Biden let them all in so that he could destroy America, and why didn't you care? And it's right-wing propaganda bullshit, Nazi gobble horseshit. It's false across the board. Now, then they bring a woman. My heart goes out to the poor woman whose sister was murdered and raped by some illegal Mexican guy or something. Brings her right into the White House, right into the Oval Office. And she sits there and talks. about what she went through and how we all have to respect our president because he's trying to do something about illegal immigration. Steven Spielberg gives us a response to that. Daniel Day-Lewis, as Abraham Lincoln, says to that congressman, sorry for your loss. And that congressman, was dead set on voting against the abolition of slavery, the 13th Amendment, because he had lost a family member who was murdered by a runaway slave. But everyone in the whole universe knows that slavery needs to go. Anyone looking back at it, you can't believe we let it last as long as we did. The same thing here. There are so many ways to make with little, very small policy changes, we can make things so much better. And you don't need to build big shiny walls and piss off our proud neighbor to the south. We need them on our side. Mexico and America should be way more united. Their kids should be, they're a young nation, their kids should be flooding our universities. It's obvious. Anyway, immigration. Human liberty, man. Freedom. Why we should all recognize what we are as human beings. And this is the fundamental problem we have. It's our fundamental problem. I think it probably is the root of all evil if it isn't the love of money. And St. Paul said, for the love of money is the root of all evil. And I've thought about that, and I think St. Paul might be right, because I don't accept any part of any book without thinking about it for myself first. The Bible is not the Word of God. But anyway, that's a whole different point. But St. Paul was probably right when he said, for the love of money is the root of all evil. Because he's looking at people and he can see what happens when somebody loves money. Because other people are desperate over here. The fundamental problem we have is that we are confronted with a very obvious truth right in front of us. Everyone matters just as much as everyone else. Now that goes against so much. It goes against Christianity, where you're supposed to shun someone or treat them as a tax collector. There's people that you're supposed to avoid. Christianity gives you that image. In Islam, I suppose that's also true, because I think if you're a descendant of Muhammad in some way, you're more special than people who are not. Both those things are obviously false. Baptized Christians shouldn't shun a sinner or whatever it is. Nobody's more special than anyone else. This is just fundamental. Just because you got a lot of money doesn't make you more special than anyone else. Just because you have an elected office doesn't make you more special than anyone else. We all matter just as much as everyone else. Now that we internalize that truth inside of us, the fact remains is tolerating the intolerant. What if 50 people over there, 100 people, a nation of people over there, or half, or the power structure of the nation over here makes the decision that we are more special than you? Then you got to fight. You got to choose teams, choose sides, and that's the fundamental problem of our lives. I think we are called by philosophy and logic to love all. We're just called by that. It doesn't have to come from the Bible. It comes from the obvious truth and obvious reality of our natures. We are called to love all. But we have to fight when some people refuse to do that. I love you all.